rising storm. I'm forged in the fire, a new heart reborn. With every breath, with every stride, God, I'm your warrior, with you as my guide. Through the valleys of shadow, through the rising storm, I'm forged in the fire, a new heart reborn.
There was a man, the Bible says he was crippled by the pool of Bethesda. Everybody say Bethesda. But Bethesda, if you know, it means church. It means the house of mercy, the house of the Lord. It's an actual true story, what I'm going to tell you, but it's also a representation of church at the same time. And so he's laying by the pool, and this pool was like a neighborhood pool, and an angel would come unannounced every year, and when the angel would stir up the waters, the first person in the pool would be healed. It was like winning the lottery in this area. It was an amazing, miraculous place. And it says in John 5:5, there was a certain man who had a deep-rooted and lingerie disorder. Oh, my bad. It says lingering disorder. But wouldn't that be funny? Because it's kind of spelled this. I'm the only one who thinks that's funny every time I read that. Poor dude had a lingerie disorder. God help him, you know. Lingering disorder for 38 years. Now, whether he was crippled physically or whether he was crippled emotionally, he came to church for 38 years and never changed. How could you be in a location where miracles occur, where wisdom is given, where God shows up, and nothing happens to you? And week after week, you're the same person, year after year, the same person, going through the same problems, same results in life. Why is that? Here's why in verse 6, Jesus said to him, do you really want to be well? Are you here for people to feel sorry for you? Are you here to use these problems as a crutch or an excuse? Or do you really want change in your life? And he never said, yes, Jesus, I want to be healed. In verse 7, he said this, I don't have anybody to put me in the pool when the water stirred. I try to get in, but it's somebody else's fault. It's always someone else. It's always someone. The reason I have a bad attitude is because of them. The reason I'm poor is because of my parents. The reason I'm sick is because of this. It's always somebody else doing something to me. It can't be me. And Jesus never said, you know what, I'm going to heal you anyway. He actually said in verse 8, I think he was saying,
hi, everybody. I hope all my unicorn warriors are doing great, fabulous, and wonderful. I'm sorry I haven't been as present. I mean, I know we've kind of done a couple of the lives and things like that, you know. And I do plan on doing some more. It's just been kind of, I don't know, kind of hectic, especially with trying to record and things like that, because I've been at home, and when I'm at home, it's hard to focus, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. It's just hard to focus when I'm at home. But, all right, so we went over some of the things about Chris as far as the planning of what could be done about Chris, I guess you could say, in the situation. So, we have also learned that allegedly Suzie had quit bathing and, you know, doing the basic needs and care for Chris. Like, she just pretty much, you could just say, abandoned him. So I think that they tried to, with the first plan, with the breakfast, you know, he would go to the breakfast and stuff, and then, I shared, you know, how I think Chris may have gotten that sick and why nobody else in the house got sick. And it's very disgusting. And tampering with somebody's food is just, oh my, that's a big no-no. You don't do that. And so I think later on, we had also discussed too that if Chris had a DNR, he would have had one then. Now, Suzie went to Virginia. They went on a trip to Virginia, and I can't tell you exactly the exact dates and everything of this trip, but she had supposedly was trying to get a DNR written up while they were up there in Virginia. Now, from my understanding, especially with listening with Miss Regina Ward and her and Miss Tamra's conversation that they had, like I said, there's a lot in that video that, you know, we can learn and gives us better understanding. And, you know, just I just thought that was a great interaction. But usually when you do a DNR, you would do it within the state that you live in, or within the county, or, you know, where you live at. That's where you would do a DNR. That makes sense. So they go on a little trip to Virginia, and she tries to get the DNR there. But why? And Miss Regina Ward had mentioned in that conversation with Tamra that really caught my ear when Miss Ward said something about, you know, they call that form shopping or something. Now, why that stuck out to me was because of the whole trip to Virginia. So it seems to me like she maybe tried to get one in their area, or maybe she was trying to get inconclusive ones, or something was going on with the whole DNR. So the day that Chris passed away, she was more worried about the DNR than being beside her husband and, you know, giving him any kind of chance at all. So, and we've heard different things, like, okay, from Suzie, and this is on medical reports, exams, whatever, you know. So, I mean, the information's out there. I can't pinpoint exactly where you can go to go get it, but it's out there. But that he got too close to the edge of the pool and he slipped in. Okay, so that's the story supposedly on the medical report. So accidental. Okay. All right, and then we hear later more stories that Suzie was the only family, that she was the only person. Now we're finding out that Chris's dad lived in the home with them. And Chris's mother, you know, would come by and see him often, or, you know, like she was in the picture. Tamra was in the picture. We saw the text messages. So one of these things don't look like the other. And I think maybe Suzie was also trying to hide the fact that she was trying to get a DNR for Chris. Because usually I would think this would be something that you discuss with family, not just your significant other, but family, you know, your closest relatives, your, you know, son, daughter, or, you know, whoever it is that you're close with. Like, my kids are grown, so I would share that information with them, you know, in case something was to happen to me and my husband, you know what I mean? So I think that makes sense. But she was trying to get it done in Virginia, but she was also trying to get it done before the trip to Virginia. Okay, so she goes and gets the DNR, or tries to, or whatever. Well, the day Chris passes, she says, you know, don't do anything trying to save his life. He's got a DNR. She runs, tries to find it. All right, she couldn't produce it. And then finally, when she could produce it, it was not fully filled out. So there's reasoning for that. And okay, so then we get to manipulation, isolation, all that stuff. Okay, Chris is going to the church, you know, with his wife and kids. All right. We know that JPdiddy likes to get on the pulpit and, you know, talk about what he's going through, you know. So while he's talking about what he's going through, he's also talking about plans. And one of the things, and this is something I meant to mention a long time ago, and I always forget, but this really reminds me now. But one of the things with evil and evildoers that are within the, I guess you say, like that occult, like, if you know where I'm going with this, then you got where I'm going. One of the main rules is people, like, you have to tell them without, there's a way that you have to, like, the person, like, you got to tell the person or whoever, you know what I mean? And then, and then you do it. So it's like kind of like the movies and, different things that we see, all around us, like people telling us, but without telling us, so they can't be like, oh, well, we didn't tell you, so that's supposed to like leave their conscience and, their wrongdoings, like that's supposed to make it okay. So if you follow me, good. If not, I can maybe do a deeper dive into that for y'all. But that is one of the main things with the different occults. So, all right. So JPdiddy's, up there preaching, and he's talking about, the whole story about the pool and this and that, and he's blaming Chris, pretty much. I'm pretty sure like Chris felt like, is he talking about me? Like, what is this dude talking? I know he's not talking about me, And then Susie's probably over there shaking her head like, yes, 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 And, I mean, Chris didn't have a choice in his matter, And with what we've heard here recently with Fitz News, which great job on getting that. And Susie saying that there's a lot of things I'm gonna point out with that too. So that's gonna go with part of their plan, because she quit bathing and taking care of his basic needs. And as a man, or even as a woman, when you're in that situation and you're not being bathed and cared for, I mean, that's isolation off bat, because who wants to go and be in the world, and feel like you're nasty, like you want to feel like you're clean and nice and, presentable or whatever, at least, So that was one way to isolate and cause depression, to add on to his stress. So they're lining up for either him to commit, and they also have other plans in place. Now, we just discovered this new narrative, y'all, about the HOA and, about, they had been fighting with them to have the pool accessible for handicapped and this and that and the other. Why was there never a lawsuit? If Chris got too close and his will slipped in somehow, why was there never no lawsuit? I'll tell you why. That was a backup plan. That was a backup plan. And if they was to pursue that in the midst of everything else that's already going on with Chris, and they're trying to keep everything hush-hush surrounding Chris and trying to keep Chris's family out of the loop, and everyone, and law and for everybody, I mean, they're trying to keep everything hush-hush. If they was to come out and do that lawsuit, not only would that put Susie in more, or have more attention on Susie, it had more attention on the circumstances of what happened. It had more attentions on the surveillance video. It had more attention all over. So that, the whole HOA narrative thing or whatever, that was a backup plan. For in case the commit or accidental some other way, which I'm going to get into the accidental some other way in just a second. Remember I told y'all I had some information. And I have talked to an expert of the exact wheelchair that Chris had. We heard from Tamra with Fitz News, one of the witnesses say that JPdiddy had talked about a remote control. Now, that has crossed all of our minds at one point, the remote control. So to have it be said by a witness just kind of confirms that with all of us. But what if I told you you don't need a remote control? You don't need any kind of control. All you need is a cell phone. And also security features for caregivers. If something was to happen with the chair and the person is in it and something happens or something happens with the chair, you get a notification, hey, something's going on, such and such chair, and you go check it out and see what's going on. So, we've heard of Bluetooth. How inconspicuous can you be? Just have a cell phone. That's all you need. And I will play the audio with y'all, but I've got to, change the voice and stuff like that because I'm not trying to put this man on blast or anything. So, but all right, we're going to get back into the video. I just want to come on here and talk to y'all for a little bit. And sorry I'm not showing my face, but like I said, I haven't been in my car, and so I haven't been putting on makeup. So but I'm gonna go ahead and play y'all the rest of the plans, and I love y'all. And if today's your birthday, happy birthday.
And her theory was that the medication made him tired and he fell asleep and the chair went into the water. But when she starts getting into whether or not it was a suicide, that is when things escalated. And, I have to say, this isn't throughout this entire interview. This is Suzie's demeanor. She goes from calm to what you hear in this clip, and then back up. It is wild.
Let's take a listen to this.
The detective said, what happened? Okay, well, he was tired. He was up all night long. He finally gets the medications, which is the same medications at night as in the morning. So he finally gets those medications that he had missed, and he probably fell asleep. He went to the same spot in the pool every single day if there was a person that could let him into the pool area. If not, he went on the outside of the gate, and he would sit there, and he would play on his phone, or he would rest. That's what he did every morning after he walked the dog. That morning, obviously, a neighbor let him into the pool. And so, yes, I think he fell asleep or whatever. I don't know.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know your thoughts. And if today's your birthday, happy birthday!